Over 2 years ago, I talked about this high school classroom aide. Remember back in like August of 2022 when Joe Biden got into trouble for saying that MAGA Republicans were semi-fascist? Oh, the president shouldn't be doing that, demonizing his opponents. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. While Donald Trump demonizes and calls his opponents, people who donate, subject to long, lengthy prison sentences, that were vermin, that were scum. Remember all that? Well, I'm going to talk about this again, but the thesis of this video, the talking point I really want to go with 20 days before the election here, is that the media finally, 20 days before the general election, is waking up just a little bit. Jake Tapper last night on his show did like a 6-minute segment about Donald Trump calling for the use of the military against his opponents. And at the very end of it, in the last minute and 10 seconds of it, he defines fascism and then says, I'll let you decide. So they're kind of getting there, but they're failing. They're missing the moment, including Jake Tapper, who in the past I've had a lot of respect for. He's been a guy that I felt was a trusted figure that I could turn to. Not as much anymore. But anyway, I'm going to play 2 segments from this 6 minutes. The first is 2.5 minutes. You can scrub through. There'll be a timer on it, all of that. But he intros the segment. I want to give you the flavor for what is being talked about without playing just the full CNN segment. And then at the end, we're going to play the part where he defines it and then throws it to the audience to make up their minds. First, here's the intro to this segment.
With just 22 days left until Election Day, former President Donald Trump is claiming that his political opponents are more dangerous than foreign adversaries of the United States.
It's the enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
The quote, enemy from within, is a phrase that the former president repeated yesterday in an interview on Fox.
We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries.
Trump went on to suggest how he might handle these so-called enemies from within on Election Day should he win in November.
We have some sick people, radical left lunatics, and I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
So who exactly are these enemies from within that Mr. Trump says he would consider deploying the military or the National Guard against? Someone that, as Trump suggests, poses a greater threat to national security than Russia or China. Who are they?
The thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Shifty Schiff.
Okay, U.S. Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, a Democrat from California, right in the area I am right now, Los Angeles, who is now running for a seat in the U.S. Senate. He was the lead prosecutor in Trump's first impeachment trial. So, as a factual matter, stripping this of all adjectives and any bias, the Republican nominee is telling you that as commander-in-chief, he will contemplate using the United States military or National Guard to go after his political opponents, including Democrats, such as the likely next U.S. Senator from California, Adam Schiff. That's what he's saying. And he is referring to his political opponents here in the United States, Americans, as the enemy, as scum, as a bigger and more dangerous enemy than China or Russia. These are his words. This is what he is telling you that he will do if you elect him president.
It's clear. This echoes the sentiments of a video I did yesterday talking about this interview with Maria Bartiromo, where Donald Trump says that we need to use the military or the National Guard, like that's not the military, to handle these radical left lunatics, the enemy from within, I guess part of the scum and the villains and the vermin and the rats and the people who are poisoning the blood of the country, all of this Nazi talk, all of this fascist talk. And here's how Jake Tapper ends the segment, throwing it to the audience to decide for yourselves whether it's fascism. And then we will very briefly and rapidly go over the 14 defining characteristics of fascism so you can decide for yourself.
One additional context of what we are hearing from Mr. Trump comes from Bob Woodward's new book, War, which comes out tomorrow. Trump's former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mr. Trump appointed it himself, retired General Mark Milley, says, quote, "He," meaning Trump, "is the most dangerous person ever. Now I realize he's a total fascist. He is the most dangerous person to this country," unquote. The Trump campaign's response to that was to say, quote, "Woke train wreck Mark Milley clearly suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, and it's no surprise he pals around with a washed-up fiction writer like Bob Woodward to peddle lies and misinformation," unquote. Woodward, of course, is one of the most respected journalists of our time. In point of fact, Webster's defines fascism the following way. Quote, "A populist political philosophy, movement, or that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition," unquote. You can be the judge as to whether General Milley's characterization sounds like with what Mr. Trump is proposing out there on the stump, live for everyone to hear.
Clearly, it's fascism. So let's do this. Let's go through this. Again, the 14 defining characteristics of fascism. Number 1, powerful and continuing nationalism, patriotic mottos, slogans, symbols, songs, flags. Who's into the mottos and the slogans and the symbols and the songs and the flags? Is that Democrats or is that Republicans? Make America great again. Number 2, disregard for human rights. Human rights can be ignored because of fear of enemies and the need for security. As a result, people tend to look the other way, approve of torture, approve of long incarcerations of prisoners, approve of executions and assassinations. Who talks like this? Is it Democrats or Republicans? Do you need to make up your mind based on some academic definition? No. Number 3, identification of enemies as a unifying cause. People are rallied into a unifying patriotic frenzy over the need to eliminate a perceived common enemy, the scum, the radical left lunatics, the vermin, the people poisoning the blood of the country, racial, ethnic or religious minorities, liberals, communists, socialists, terrorists. If you label your enemies this, it makes it easier to do that. Number 4, supremacy of the military. The military is given a disproportionate amount of government funding. What? Never heard of that happening. Never heard of the next 8 countries behind us relative to funding. We spend more on our military than they do combined. 5, widespread sexism. How many times have I talked about these MAGA preachers and Trump surrogates who are calling for the repeal of the 19th Amendment and women's suffrage? This says the government tends to be almost exclusively male-dominated. Traditional gender roles are more rigid, and divorce, abortion, and homosexuality are suppressed. Divorce, abortion, and homosexuality are being suppressed. Well, that must be Democrats, right? That must be Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles over at Daily Wire. That seems like a Democrat thing. You know, those Democrats I just mentioned. 6, controlled mass media. The media is directly or indirectly controlled by the government. Censorship is very common, says the party that wants to ban books. Number 7, obsession with national security. Fear is used as a motivational tool by the government over the masses. I will be your retribution. They're eating the pets. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. They're taking over Colorado and apartment complexes. Fear. Number 8, religion and government are intertwined. White Christian nationalism, a call to intermingle to do away with the First Amendment prohibition against the establishment of a religion. The separation of church and state they want to do away with. Number 9, corporate power is protected. Mutually beneficial business-government relationship. Corporate power is protected. Yeah, that doesn't seem familiar at all from what Republicans do. Number 10, labor power is suppressed. I mean, come on. Number 11, disrespect for intellectuals and the arts. Open hostility to higher education. It's a playbook. I could be reading from the Republican platform right now. Number 12, obsession with crime and punishment. Local police are given almost limitless power to enforce laws. You mean like Donald Trump saying that we should let police summarily execute people who are suspected of shoplifting? Number 13, rampant cronyism and corruption. How many indictments, how many pardons did Donald Trump issue for his cronies and his associates? And number 14, from the 14 defining characteristics of fascism, fraudulent elections. Donald Trump attempting to stay in office extra democratically. Look, it is clear as day, and the media largely, look, if this is just the opening salvo of the media waking up to Donald Trump and the fascistic, not tendencies, but direction that he is pointing the car here, good. Good that the media might be waking up. I won't hold my breath. You don't need to decide for yourself on this. The Republican Party is a fascist organization. Donald Trump, at the helm of the fascist organization, is a fascist. Every single one of these 14 points apply directly. And by the way, again, I'll mention it like I mentioned it 2 years ago. This is from years and years and years ago, before Donald Trump. This is not a response to Donald Trump. This was put together as a classroom aid to teach high schoolers about political ideologies. Basic stuff. You shouldn't need some definition from Jake Tapper and then him telling you, decide for yourself though, maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? You can comment below. I would appreciate that. You can also leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please consider supporting my work, helping me produce these videos. Click the join button below. See what's involved to become a channel member. $2 a month. You can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Follow me on social media. I am at Dollemore. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm almost to 800,000. I would appreciate it very much. I love and appreciate you. Thanks for your engagement. Be genuine. Take care of one another.